Greetings! Happy new-ish year. Welcome to the January 2026 edition of the Electorama News. This month's main feature, the proposed repeal of Measure 2, the 2020 measure that instituted RCV in Alaska. Also, we'll cover some late-breaking news at the federal level. Section 1. Main feature, Alaska RCV. In November 2026, Alaskan voters will decide yet again whether to keep the Top 4 plus RCV system created by Alaskan Measure 2 from 2020. The second repeal initiative by Repeal Now is on the November ballot for voters in Alaska. Let's explain how we got here. It all began with RCV getting into Alaska in the first place. In 2019, Alaskans for Better Elections started gathering signatures for a measure with state ID 19 AKBE, which proposed a few things: converting Alaska's primary elections to a top 4 primary, converting the general election to ranked choice voting, and requiring additional disclosures of donations to political campaigns. Almost all primary elections were affected. Only presidential primaries would continue to be party-based primaries. The Alaska Measure 2 was on the ballot in November 2020 and received 50.55% of the vote, narrowly passing with a margin of 3,781 votes. It was, however, challenged in court shortly after the election. An Anchorage Superior Court judge upheld the measure in July 2021, and the Alaska Supreme Court later upheld the system's constitutionality in Kohlhaas versus State, which was published in 2022. Measure 2 was scheduled to take effect in 2022, but the first implementation happened sooner than originally envisioned. In March 2022, longtime U.S. House Representative Don Young died unexpectedly, triggering a special election, which was a June primary and an August RCV general, while the regular 22 cycle proceeded at the same time, with a regular August primary and a November general election. In the June 2022 special primary, Republican Sarah Palin received the most votes, so she advanced to the general. Republican Nick Begich, Independent candidate Al Gross, and Democrat Mary Peltola also qualified, though Gross dropped out before the August election. In the August special election, Peltola won, surprising many. The surprise was in part because of Peltola rising from 10.1% of the vote in the June special primary to getting 40.2% in the first round vote of the special general election and 36.8% of the vote in the regular top 4 primary, which was held simultaneously with the RCV election. It also became controversial because, according to the ranked ballots from the special election, Begich was preferred to Peltola head-to-head by 8,697 votes, but was eliminated before many of those ballots could transfer under RCV/IRV rules, and many ballots ended up exhausted. Peltola won the November 2022 general election as well, and that outcome was less controversial. Peltola decisively bested Begich pairwise in November, with 48.1% supporting Peltola over Begich, with 23.0% supporting Begich over Peltola, and with 28.8% not having a preference between the two candidates. Peltola went on to serve the remainder of Young's term and also serve a term of her own. Near the end of Peltola's first full term in 2024, she faced another challenge from Nick Begich in a primary general pair of elections. Peltola received the majority of votes in the primary election in August 2024, but Begich won the general election in November. In the general election, Begich led in the first round, and after transfers, he finished with just over 50.0% of the vote, compared to Peltola's 47.6%. It may be worth noting that Begich's November 2024 margin of victory, 7,876 votes, is similar to the 8,697 vote head-to-head advantage Begich had over Peltola in the August 2022 special election. So, the original Measure 2, 19 AKBE, has faced persistent opposition. Alaskans for Honest Elections, not to be confused with Alaskans for Better Elections, were able to get a repeal measure on the 2024 ballot with state ID 2222 AKHE. This measure was faced by a lawsuit led by Alaskans for Better Elections, but ultimately was allowed on the ballot. Still, they suffered a narrow loss in the November election, with those voting yes on repeal 49.89% of the voters, and no on repeal 50.11%, which was a margin of 743 votes. Some fundraising reports from October 2024 showed the pro-RCV side outraising and presumably outspending the anti-RCV side by 100-1, but later reporting shows that the pro-RCV side, Alaskans for Better Elections and their allies, they spent over $15 million, and the anti-RCV side, Alaskans for Honest Elections and their allies, spending just over $713,000. So the spending ratio is approximately 22-1. Shortly after the November 2024 election, a different group, Repeal Now, filed a new repeal initiative with yet another state ID, this one 24 ESEG, which they filed in December 2024, and was approved for signature collection in February 2025. Alaskans for Honest Elections also filed a separate repeal petition in 2024, but discontinued theirs in January of 2025 to avoid confusion with Repeal Now's effort. Repeal Now's 24 ESEG was certified in December 2025 for the November 2026 ballot, though they face a lawsuit, again, from Alaskans for Better Elections. So, Alaskans for Better Elections will be battling against Repeal Now over the fate of RCV in Alaska. Who will win and what they will spend in 2026 is anybody's guess. Section 2, the Reddit and FPTP update. The top voted posts in January of 2026, as of this reading and writing, were What is Approval Voting by I Like Neurons with 86 points and 108 comments, and record high 45% identify as political independence as high-stakes media midterm elections approach, also by I Like Neurons with 36 points and 12 comments. Here are all of the posts on End FPTP in January, I think. A record high 45% identify as political independence and as high-stake midterm elections approach. That's one of the top rated ones that I was just telling you about by I Like Neurons. On January 29th, a flurry of new election-related bills proposed in Mississippi, Hawaii, Kansas, Tennessee, and such, with a score of 6, posted by Nice Penguin with 2 Gs. Also on the 29th is Foot Voting Better Than Democracy, posted by Serious Cucumber 54 on January 29th. Before that, on January 22nd, Ensemble Condorcet runoff, a meta rule to resolve disagreement among Condorcet completionists. And that was posted by Previous Word 3517 with 12 comments and a score of 1. Also on January 22nd, the Rosatellum System of Italy, posted by Additional Kick 307 with a score of 2. Also on January 22nd, What is Approval Voting? Posted by I Like Neurons with a score of 86. On January 20th, someone posted a post titled Fair Vote Canada's Statement on the Referendum that was held in the Yukon for the province to implement instant runoff voting, noting that instant runoff voting ended up winning the referendum with 56% of the vote. And that was posted by Sammy Coolfun 11 on January 20th with a score of 14. On January 19th, Plermatus posted a post titled Historical Ballots and got a score of 3 for that one. On January 18th, user Rabla, aka me, voted, should approval voting have a primary? And that got a score of 7. But it also got 14 comments. Also on January 18th, a post titled Condorcet Referendum with 3 fixed alternatives ranking to express a nuanced public opinion. And that was posted by user Previous Word 3517 and got a score of 5. On January 18th also, why Meek STV was asked by Pleromatus again and got a score of 4. And then we went for a few days. Moving backwards, the next post moving backwards is from January 15th by user Balto Waller Wallen 28, titled Critiques and Help Finding Blind Spots for a Proposed Electoral System Idea for the United States I've been working on for years. That one got a score of 5 and 20 comments. On January 14th, a post titled Median Voting for a Number in quotes and ellipsis Greenland. And that was posted by user Robert J. Brown and got a score and has a score of 1 at the time this was captured. Also on January 14th, does ranked choice voting with expanding approvals exist? ? Asked by Badge for Same Username, and with getting a score of 2. And that also got 11 comments. On January 13th, a post titled Thoughts on Ranked Ballot DMP-STV system that I created was asked by Sammy Coolfun 11, getting a score of 3 and 10 comments. And then on January 12th, we had a couple of posts. The first one's titled American Gerrymandering Wars 2026 Support or Oppose, posted by user Hafa Genza with a score of 3 and 22 comments. And also on the 12th is a post titled, Is a Condorcet winner always the best choice when it exists? posted by badge for same username with getting a score of 14 and yielding 92 comments. On January 11th, a post titled Top 3 2-Round Score Voting System Proposal, a hybrid system combining screening and high-quality finals, was posted by previous word 3517 and got a score of 1 and 2 comments. On January 10th, a post titled The Core Method of Decision-Making, Consensus or Random Exclusion, was posted by Jan Kasimi, getting a score of 4. And that was that yielded 16 comments. On January 9th, there was a post titled A Lousy Argument for Why the Condorcet winner should not be elected even when one exists, posted by user RB-J, getting a score of 4 and yielding 21 comments. On January 8th, had 2 posts. The first one being I love anti-plurality voting, posted by user Victor H. Daniel, but only earned a score of 0 as of this writing and reading, and did get 4 comments. Also on January 8th, the check rank for Alaska Replacement Inspiration was posted by user Lower Grass 5624, yielding a score of 5 and 9 comments. On January 5th, a post titled Alaska's Final Round Ranked Choice Results was posted by user eTyler 2026, getting a score of 0 but 25 comments. So it was probably rated higher at the time it got all those comments. On January 4th, a post titled Need Help Creating Debunk Video for Washington Secretary of State Claims About RCV, posted by Endo231, getting a score of 15 and 40 comments. On January 3rd, there was at least a couple of posts. One titled Mixing Open Primaries and First Past the Post / Choose One Voting Doesn't Really Make a Lot of Sense, posted by Unscrupulous Canoe, earning a score of 6 and receiving 20 comments. And then also on January 3rd, Missouri with 16 districts and attempting to minimize splitting was posted by Dave's Redistricting, it was a link to a different Reddit post from Dave's Redistricting, but the user who posted it was DataGeek93, and they got a score of 1 and only 1 comment. On January 2nd, a post titled Campaigns for Primary Reform, Get Involved Now, bang, was posted by I Like Neurons, getting a score of 1 and 4 comments. And also on January 2nd, a post titled The Habit of Marginalization, Why IRV Calms Polarized Societies More Effectively Than Condorcet, was posted by previous word 3517, who got a score of 15, and also the post yielded 18 comments. And then finally, a post titled The Case for Approval Voting was posted on January 1st by I Like Neurons and received 15 comments in response. And that is it for the end FPTP section of Section 3, the Voting Theory Forum Update. This is going to be a reverse chronological look at the posts and replies of the Voting Theory Forum at votingtheory.org. Resolving Non-Uniqueness in Maximal Lotteries, started by C. Frank on January 23rd, with the last post by Toby Pereira on January 29th. Consolidation and Navigation of Forum Activity was posted by C. Frank, with Toby Pereira and me, Rob Law, last posting on January 29th. Voters Army, my new attempt to make electoral reform sexy, started by Greg W. on January 17th, with Greg W. and C. Frank posting to that thread. An atrocious blow from the Supreme Court, or perhaps an opportunity? Candidates can sue for voting method, started by C. Frank on January 20th. Detecting Condorcet cycles, started by C. Frank on January 18th. Maximal lotteries, started by C. Frank on January 3rd, with 8 posts and 1 upvote, involving both C. Frank and Toby Pereira. The last post to that one was January 13th, but it was started on January 3rd. And integration with existing infrastructure was started by C. Frank last year, actually, on August 25th, August 3rd, 2025. But that thread was revived by C. Frank on January 9th. And that is it for the Voting Theory Forum. Section 4, Center for Election Science Updates. In January 2026, the Center for Election Science, or CES, continued working to develop relationships and institute policy changes in several initiatives. They've largely been working at the state level, but are working with national organizations like the ACLU and the NAACP. In Maryland, State Senator Mike McKay proposed and sponsored the Fair Districts for Maryland Act, SB 104, which changes how districts are drawn. CES is also working with Senator McKay on an approval voting pilot in Maryland's 1st Congressional District. CES remains optimistic about the possibility for statewide changes in Maryland, with the fresh set of eyes in leadership, as last month saw new Speaker Jolene Pena Melnick being sworn in. In Utah, the 2026 legislative session began with a vacant seat left by former Senator Daniel Thatcher, who resigned his seat after joining the Forward Party. His vacancy was filled in part through a preference poll conducted by the Forward Party in late 2025, which utilized approval voting and allowed poll respondents to approve as many as they liked. The poll was open to all District 11 voters and resulted in the nomination of Emily Buss. Governor Spencer Cox accepted the Forward Party's choice, and Senator Buss was sworn in on January 20th, 2026. The process will serve as a good test for other approval voting-related reforms as the session kicks off, although it should be noted that at least one Republican lawmaker disagrees with Buss's appointment and has proposed SB 194 to curb such appointments. In Iowa, State Senator Rob Sand has begun educating fellow legislators about approval voting as a legally viable alternative to RCV. There's an anti-RCV sentiment in Iowa, shown in part by RCV being officially banned under House File 954, signed by Governor Kim Reynolds in June of 2025. With RCV being with RCV being off the table for now, the hope is that Iowa legislators and voters will be open to alternatives to RCV. CES continues to work with the ACLU and NAACP in helping frame electoral reform as a means for more broadly equitable representation and to educate leaders in those organizations about the full spectrum of alternatives to choose one voting methods. You can find more links to CES's blog, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X, and YouTube in the printed newsletter, or I don't know, the webpage news. Section 5, Fair Vote Updates. The folks over at Fair Vote celebrated the following in January: the December reintroduction and increase in sponsors in the Ranked Choice Voting Act. Also, the passage in Salem, Massachusetts, of a home rule petition related to RCV, which now goes to the Massachusetts State House for approval. Also, the first use of ranked choice voting in Washington, D.C. in June, and high-profile races in Maine and Alaska. And finally, the January 23rd celebration of Ranked Choice Voting Day, with an estimated 15 state and national groups hosting or participating in events nationwide. And you can find links to all of Fair Vote's blog, their Blue Sky, their Facebook, their Instagram, their Twitter/X, and their YouTube channel, all over on the ElectoWiki version of this newsletter. Section 6, Equal Vote Coalition and Star Voting Action Updates. One disclaimer: I am on the board of Equal Vote Coalition, have been since near the beginning of last year. And with that, that's how I know that 2025 was a tough year for the Equal Vote Coalition. But it ended on a bright note when the city of Astoria, Oregon, used star voting to fill a vacancy on their city council. The folks at EVC are pretty excited about the work they've been able to do online. They have many videos in their production pipeline, and many folks in the wider electoral reform community are pretty excited about the ongoing improvements to bettervoting.com, which allows anyone to set up a poll using many different election methods. Other news from the Equal Vote Coalition and Star Voting Action can be found on the Star Voting blog. In addition, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube all have Equal Vote related content, and you can find links to it in the ElectoWiki version of this newsletter. Section 7, Better Choices for Democracy. This is a relatively new organization that promotes consensus choice, which is Better Choices for Democracy's preferred name for Condorcet methods. They've also launched an app, see app.betterchoices.vote, to demonstrate to people how pairwise methods work. They are also pushing for jurisdictions that have considered using top 3 or top 4 primaries to use consensus choice for the subsequent general election. They have published an explainer titled Top 3 or Top 4 Expands Choice. Head-to-head matchups make elections fairer by treating every voter and candidate equally. BC4D, another name for Better Choices for Democracy, they have affiliated members who have published opinion pieces recently in some notable online publications. 2 of which are from Professor Wes Holliday, and 2 of which are from Ned Foley. The 2 Wes Holliday pieces, one of which is a white paper titled How to Make Every Voter Matter and Make Spoiler Effects Go Away. He introduces consensus choice and explains how it works and its benefits. In the other paper, it's a more theoretical paper in January titled The Incompatibility of the Condorcet Winner and Loser Criteria with Positive Involvement and Resolvability. Ned Foley has published two pieces. In one, he posits that the Supreme Court cannot protect against an American Caesar, as he refers to it, and suggests that only electoral reform can protect us. In a different dispatch, Foley asks, when will we realize the necessity of electoral reform to protect against tyranny? That one is in the election log blog. There's a few other resources for better choices for democracy, one of which is their blog, but they also have Instagram and YouTube accounts as well, both of which they have been fairly active on, and you can find links to those in the ElectoWiki version of this newsletter. Section 8, Wikipedia. This is a list of recent electoral reform article updates on English Wikipedia. I'm actually not going to read through all of this stuff. This was all automatically generated from a script that wasn't very good at summarizing what was going on the Wikipedia side of things. I'm hoping to build something a little bit better for next month's Electorama News. Stay tuned. Section 9, Electorama, ElectoWiki, election methods, election science, or election software, and the ABIF format. Not a whole lot of activity on most of those fronts, but the EM list, the election methods list, was pretty quiet for most of the month, except for me, your editor-in-chief, promoting the Electorama call and the Electorama news, not to mention Electorama on lemmy.world. Things picked up when Joe Malkovich started the conversation about the Elkind Han Zia paper about shortlisting, which studies the ways that groups narrow down options in the process of coming to a single conclusion. You can look through pretty much all of the activity in the newsletter itself, or following the links, that is. Section 10, additional news, other orgs, miscellaneous stuff. So this is, the first part of this is going to be the news that I either pitched at the Electorama call or stuff that broke after the call. Like, for example, the Make Elections Great Again Act that was introduced to Congress in the U.S. Congress on January 30th. This might end up being a focus of next month's mail newsletter. Just to quote the bill, though, one of the things that it prohibits or stipulates is that a state may not carry out a general election for federal office in the state using a voting system that, 1, permits a voter to vote for more than one candidate for the same office, 2, permits a voter to rank multiple candidates for the same office, or 3, reallocates the vote of a voter from one candidate to another candidate for the same office. So this has pretty broad stipulation or broad implications for electoral reform. There's a lot of other stuff in this bill as well. This clause is not the only clause that voters should worry about. It's just the main clause that election methods nerds would be worried about, but it's a big deal and will be a big deal in February. The next item is Indiana State Bill 12, which is an anti-ranked choice voting bill. This is Jason Sneed's. There's just a link to his testimony in front of Congress in the state Congress in Indiana. There's in Maryland's Montgomery County, there's a proposal to ensure the Republican Party gets seats, or at least that those seats are non-Democratic Party seats. And there's a couple of links to news stories there. And then finally, the Italian Premierato. There's this is looking like a pretty big deal over in Italy. I don't know as much as I want to on this one, and that's the reason why I may be investigating it myself later. But if anybody wants to get in touch with me to educate me, I'd be more than happy to learn. Also, there's a very incomplete list of various other possible organizations associated with electoral reform in the newsletter. Be happy to see you look around at the website, and hopefully you find it all useful. Anyway, that is it for the Electorama News for January 2026. Look forward to seeing you